Whenever you reject the worldview of another person or group of people, ultimately you're rejecting a part of yourself and your own ability to access the wholeness of life and consciousness. Now, it doesn't mean you have to agree with every worldview, every perspective, but it does mean that if you deny them, reject them, or can't even consider them, then there are all kinds of limits and restrictions and narrowing within your own world, with your own consciousness. If I'm going to go for a walk through a city, I don't just want to know where the beautiful places are or the great cafes. I'd like to know the whole city so I can choose wisely. If there's dangerous places or parts that are unknown or parts where there's lots of crime, let me make my own decisions if I want to go explore them or not. And if there's beautiful places, who says they're beautiful and according to what values? I'd much rather have a bigger picture of the landscape that I'm traveling through than one that is narrow and carefully designed to create only one specific experience. Now, that doesn't mean that once I have the map or once I know the territory, I won't choose my preferred experience or my preferred way of getting around or getting through. I probably will. But how can I do that intelligently or with any meaning or heart or purpose if I am simply flat out reactively rejecting the things that I don't like or the things that I think I don't like? One of the most dramatic ways that this has happened throughout history was when the Judeo-Christian Western world began to so-called modernize the mind and the idea of reality, and systematically through colonization and other academic and religious pursuits, vilified, demonized, ostracized, and even outlawed the indigenous worldview. One of the elements of that worldview which became crushed and eventually ridiculed was the idea that everything has spirit, everything has a soul, everything has a kind of sacred energy within it. And interestingly, in the indigenous worldview of days long ago and present day as well, as best I understand, none of these energies were entirely understood in a narrow way. So it wasn't like bears were good spirits and armadillos were bad spirits and rabbits were good spirits and owls were bad spirits. Everything had a certain kind of wholeness that depended on the context and your relationship and your experience. These were dynamic souls, not just signs or symbols that you could, create an encyclopedia of. The reason why this is an important example, though, is because when we lost the idea that the world is in fact alive and filled with spirit and energy, we began to lose our ability to relate to the world. And talk to a tree, talk to the river, and more significantly than talking to these things is the practice of listening to them. Interestingly, what we've found in the last 50 years of modern, rigorous material science is that very much of what traditional indigenous knowledge held and shared and certainly has maintained throughout these generations has proved to be measurably true. It actually turns out that every living creature in this forest, and that includes mushrooms and grasses and ferns and plants, that they're all communicating in different ways, through chemicals, through energy, through their movement, and so are the creatures in the forest as well. It turns out that feeling or sensing or seeing all things as being alive is in fact an incredible environmental ethic. It's a way to value the world we live in. It's a way to relate more than just through the mind, just through the body, but also through the heart, through intuition, through energy, and that which we could even call the soul. So before you reject any worldview or you make any opponent of yours wrong, you might consider the wholeness of what they have to offer. Where is it coming from? What's it trying to achieve? And is there something in yourself like that that you might be forgetting or overlooking, or even worse, denying and therefore acting from unconsciously. A lot of the political fight that we see in the world is about picking sides and making the other one wrong. But ultimately, they're behaving the same way. They're just picking sides and making the other one wrong. And rather than getting on to the important work of helping people, healing communities, or leading in a good way, they're just busy making a game of it. Don't do that yourself. I'd call that spiritually stupid.